What's up? So this one's gonna be about Fred Hampton Sr., Black Panther Party out of Chicago. 2020 ran that Black Panther special the other night, and while I was disappointed they didn't concentrate talking about Stokely Carmichael and Huey Newton and enough on Bobby Seale, and they did a little bit on some of Elaine Brown and a few, but they really, even though they didn't go there, they did give Fred Hampton his due, but they haven't really properly given him his due. He was very articulate, down to earth, strong soul brother. Much respect off the top. He was murdered by the FBI and the police and the CIA and that scumbag racist Richard Nixon. They all sought out to assassinate him. You know, one thing that people don't always understand, this was only 50 years ago, and that was very sad to see Bobby Seale being led into Chicago in the courtroom, bondage and banded up. That was of extreme racism. But what do you expect? This country's always been like that when it comes to black folk, and it's always been that way. Sad to say it's going to probably stay that way because you can't change things overnight, and the racism is real. And what they did to Fred Hampton was injustice. I was a strong minded soul brother who was down for the cause, very intelligent, strong intellect, strong will, strong instincts, and he was plain bloody murdered. And I put it all on the FBI, CIA, and Richard Nixon and the local police of Chicago because they set out because of his movement. And if you remember in the scene in Malcolm X when Malcolm was guiding the nation and people in the streets to get the brother out of prison and jail in New York, and that cop said that one black man got too much power. You cannot be black in a movement in America without repercussions because they kill you off every time in some form or fashion. And they literally went up to Fred Hampton's house and they killed him. And it was tragic. But there has not been a full and formal apology. J. Edgar Hoover was behind it. He's a racist bigot. Richard Nixon was behind it, racist bigot. All those powers that be did not want this man to have his voice to oratory. Now, the interesting thing, there were white soldiers and brothers and sisters involved, associated with the Panthers. That's the part that a lot of people don't always acknowledge. So they were pro-black, they weren't anti anything, but the racism that's real. And you did have a token black informant, which was, you know, that sellout behavior, which was allowed, sadly, to say to inform. But they never found anything on Fred Hampton, not Fred Hammond, Fred Hampton. Clarified it. But Fred Hampton, it's a must need to Google research about Fred Hampton, what he meant to the Panthers and what he represented out of Chicago and what he was. Because Fred Hampton is truly a civil rights hero, a leader, an inspiration, and he was a very strong young man who had strong ideas, and his voice. There's a voice there that needs to be respected. So do some research on Fred Hampton, Black Panthers, who was killed by the system. That's sad to say. That's the story from 50 years ago, which has never been properly brought to where it needs to be. But that's the cold-blooded nature. Black person who is a lead, who can lead, is a dangerous weapon. If you're intelligent, that's the message they always keep sending out here. So, all right, that's my take about Fred Hampton, Chicago Black Panther, who was killed by the system. Read about him. Feel free to leave comments, hit the subscribe when the bell rings. There's a new video. I'm out. Power to the people.